For centuries, people have searched for a legendary object said to possess extraordinary power, the Holy Grail. According to legend, it was the cup used by Jesus Christ at the Last Supper. Others claimed it held miraculous abilities. Some believed it could grant wisdom. Others believed it could bring immortality. Most historians consider the Grail a religious legend, but during the 20th century, one of history's most infamous regimes became fascinated by ancient myths, lost relics, and mysterious powers. And that has led to one of the strangest stories of World War II. When people think about Nazi Germany, they usually think about war, politics, and military power. But behind the scenes, some high-ranking Nazis had a deep interest in mythology and the occult. The most famous was Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS. Himmler was fascinated by ancient Germanic legends, medieval knights, and the idea that certain artifacts might contain spiritual or symbolic power. Unlike Adolf Hitler, whose reviews on the occult were more complicated and often skeptical, Himmler actively supported research into ancient myths and historical mysteries. To him, the past was not just history, it was a tool that could be used to build a new ideology. The Holy Grail first appeared in medieval European literature. Different stories described it in different ways. Sometimes it was a cup, sometimes a stone, sometimes a sacred object hidden from humanity. Over time, the Grail became one of the most famous treasures in Western mythology. Countless adventurers claimed to know its location. None ever proved it, but the mystery only made the legend stronger. By the early 20th century, the Grail had become associated not only with religion, but with secret knowledge, destiny, and hidden power. Exactly the kind of myth that fascinated certain Nazi leaders. One of the most important locations connected to the story is Welserburg Castle. Himmler transformed this medieval castle into a symbolic center of the SS. He envisioned it as a kind of ideological headquarters, a place where mythology, history, and Nazi beliefs would merge. The castle was redesigned with ceremonial rooms, symbols, and spaces intended to reinforce the identity of the SS. Because of its unusual role, many later writers connected Welserburg to legends of the Holy Grail. Some even described it as a Nazi version of King Arthur's Camelot. Whether Himmler genuinely believed in Grail legends or merely used them symbolically remained debated. The most famous figure linked to an actual Nazi Grail search was Otto Rachen. Rachen was fascinated by medieval stories and the Cathars, a religious group that lived in southern France during the Middle Ages. He believed that connections might exist between the Cathars and Grail legends. His investigations focused on ancient castles, caves, and historical sites in France. Eventually, his work attracted the attention of Himmler and the SS. Rachen joined the SS and continued his research. This later fueled stories that Nazi leaders were actively searching for the Grail. However, historians disagree on how much in Rachen's work was genuine archaeology and how much was speculation based on legend. This is where history became difficult to separate from myth. There is evidence that some Nazi officials showed interest in Grail legends. There is evidence that Himmler supported unusual historical and pseudo-scientific projects. And there is evidence that researchers like Otto Rachen investigated sites associated with Grail stories. But there is no evidence that the Nazis ever came close to finding a Holy Grail. Nor is there evidence that a large-scale secret operation successfully located such an artifact. Many modern stories encouraged what actually happened. Part of the reason this legend survives is because it combines two things people find endlessly fascinating: The Nazis and Hidden Treasure. When combined, they create a powerful mystery. Books, documentaries, and films have expanded the story for decades. Perhaps the most famous example is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. In the movie, Nazis search for the Holy Grail, believing it will grant extraordinary power. Although fictionally, the film helped cement the idea in popular culture. Today, many people know the legend through movies rather than historical research. Interestingly, the most important question may not be whether the Nazis found the Grail. It is why they were interested in such stories at all. For leaders like Himmler, myths could be politically useful. Legends helped create a sense of destiny and historical purpose. Ancient stories could be adapted into propaganda. The goal was not necessarily to discover magical objects. It was to build an identity rooted in an imagined past. In that sense, the research was often more ideological than archaeological.